Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's time to do another video, and in this one it's going to be a short one, but we're just going to look at a couple of debugging tricks. So let's get to it. As always, before we get started, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. It really does make a difference to my channel. And also, if you like the channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell, because then you won't miss any of the content that I produce. But let's jump into Studio. So what I built here is just a very simple workflow. It's just a sequence with 3 message boxes, message box A, B, and C. And that is exactly what they show, just a message with A, B, or C in it. So the function I want to take a look at today is hidden in the context menu. If I right-click any sequence or activity, we have these 3 guys down here at the bottom. Run to this activity, run from this activity, and the test activity function. Some of these can come in quite handy. One of them I'm not a big fan of, but I'm going to show you just anyways. But the first one is run to this activity. If, for example, I select message box B and then select the run to this activity function, what is going to happen is that the automation is going to run, and once it gets to the message box B, we can see here that it shows message box A. Once it gets to B, it's going to break. So this is the equivalent of just using a normal breakpoint, and it does exactly the same. If I stop the automation and actually go to the message box B activity and set a breakpoint and then run that in normal debug mode, we're going to get exactly the same result. So no real biggie here. I'm not a big fan of this function, but this next function can be very interesting. So this is the run from this activity function. So if I just remove the breakpoint that we just created a minute ago and then select to run from this activity, that will allow us to simply run and show the message box with the B in it as the very first thing that happens. Now, why is that interesting at all? Well, in this very simple automation, it doesn't make much sense because we just have 3 message boxes. But if you have a very large, very complex automation, for example, if you're using the Robotic Enterprise Framework, then you might want to, in certain instances, just test a very small part of the process SAML file. And you can do that with this function. So the interesting part is really that if you noticed when I ran it, I'll do it again. It sort of paused and then it showed us this header up here. You may now edit variable values in the locals panel. Press continue or step into when you are ready. Well, what does that mean really? Well, let's stop the automation once again. And then pretend we're not going to show just a B here. We're going to show the value or the contents of a variable. So we'll create a new variable first. We'll just call it first name because it's a simple example. We're not going to give it a default value, and I'll explain why in just a second. But inside of the message box, we're then going to show the text. First name is colon, and then the actual value of the first name variable. So if I run this now from this point, we are going to see a message box that just shows you first name is colon and then nothing else. Like that. And that's not very valuable to us. So we actually want to see how this message box behaves if we had a value in that variable. So what happens when this thing pauses when we run it and shows this header is that gives us a chance to actually fill out or populate the variables that are in scope with values. So right now, if we go to the locals panel, we can see that there's this first name variable of type string. And I can just double click it and then type in Bob, for example, if that's the first name we want to test with. And once I then click continue up here, then it's going to show the message box, but with the contents of the variable, which was Bob. So this is a really powerful feature that allows you to do sort of on-the-spot testing in a very, very narrow scope without having to employ sort of the full-on testing features that are available also in UiPath Studio. But this allows you to just do a very simple version of that. And the same goes for the last function that I want to show you, which is, let me just stop the execution here, which is if we just do the test activity, you can almost guess what this thing does. It tests just that activity. And if we do that, it's going to show us that same header again, that you may now edit variable values in the locals panel. Press continue or step into when you're ready. And if you notice, the Bob value that we entered into the locals panel just a minute ago when we were running the run from this activity function is no longer there. So now if we type in Bill, for example, and press continue, then we'll see the same message box with the Bill value in it. And once we press OK, as opposed to just before when we pressed OK for the run from this activity option, it would then continue on to message box C. When we click it here, because we're only testing one activity, which is the middle message box, the execution is going to run, and we can see from the green check mark that this was the only activity that was actually executed. So why wouldn't I want to use a default value for these variables, as I talked about a second ago? Well, because if I want to deploy this into production, and eventually at some point I do, I need to remember to remove all of those values for those default variables, because otherwise they become part of the production code, and I don't necessarily want that to happen. So I just wanted to show these couple of features. Again, the first one, run to this activity, I don't really get. If you get it better than I do, make sure you leave it in the comments below. But the run from activity and the test activity, I really like those features in UiPath Studio. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like, and also subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, and check out some of the other videos on my channels. There should be a couple of them lighting up right now. So yeah, that's it for this time. Take care.